Okay, let's wrap up part 3 of our Unity VR tutorial video series, and here we're just gonna put the finishing touches on everything we've done so far. In the previous videos, we learned how to install Unity, we learned where to find 3D files, and we learned how to do 3D scanning with our iPhone and bring those, real objects into our 3D world in Unity. And pretty much everything that applies there also applies to Unreal Engine, but this video will only focus on Unity. In terms of starting with Unity, I really recommend using Unity Learn. There's a series called Create with VR. They say it can take up to 30 hours to complete this, but basically you create your own VR room, and it teaches you everything you need to know about Unity, the very basics, and how to make an executable file, make your own standalone game for VR, so to speak, with this. So I highly recommend doing this before watching the rest of this video. Think of this video as more of an add-on to what this course teaches you. So where we left off, we brought in our 3D scan of the Power Wheels car into the Unity virtual environment. So I've downloaded a 3D asset of an office space. We're going to pull that in and resize a few things here to make everything look correct. So in terms of a good place to get downloads, highly recommend DeviantArt. You can download XPS files and what are called scenes, such as this office space, and import them into Unity using Blender. So I'm going to move the giant floor and just pull the position up a little bit, maybe like 0.1 here. On the right hand side, you can change position, rotation, and scale. This floor is basically where the character can move around in the VR room. So you can teleport on this pad, so you can't jump outside of the office environment. A reminder that you can check out the packages used in your Unity project. You can also look at the Unity registry and look at a full list of available packages. But if you look at what's in your project, you can see what's active, such as the OpenXR plugin that's being used here. So this VR will be compatible with both Oculus and OpenXR. And as for the rendering, it's utilizing the Universal Render Pipeline, Universal RP. So that is how we are rendering this scene. And remember that your scenes are like your levels. And so under the assets, you'll see these two scenes. And right now, I'm just playing with my Create with VR starter scene, and you can rename that and organize how you'd like. And of course, this is a secondary scene. So right now we have two scenes. And if you wanted to add more scenes, you can right-click and just say Add Scene. Remember that your XR rig here, this is where your player will start, where you will start in VR. And this is where the camera bounding box is, so to speak. There are settings here for you to set up how you teleport around and what your camera is going to look like, etc. Just a quick note that you can change the tracking type. If you just want rotation or position with your VR headset, you can change that here. I usually prefer rotation and position so that it's tracking using all the sensors on the VR headset. Also a reminder that the left-hand controller and right-hand controller settings are within the XR rig. This includes the 3D model for your hands, and also the setup of the buttons that are used within the virtual world. And if we see the select, activate UI actions here, we can see that they're there for the left controller. We can double click on them, and we can see the default input actions here from haptic settings, grip settings, and you can modify all the button settings from this UI. You'll see that the XR Ray Interactor script is also attached in the line rendering. You can change the colors of the giant laser beams that come out of your hands by default with this XR rig. You can remove them if you want. I usually keep them just because for newbies it's very easy to see what you're pointing at in your virtual environment. As for controls, if you're clicking within the screen window within Unity, you can hold the middle mouse button and you can pan around your screen. If you hold the right mouse button, you can kind of look around in a 360 view. You can hold the right mouse button, click and drag. And then if you left click on stuff, you can select items And you can also use your arrow keys to move around the room as well. So I'm using the folder package from the Create with VR, and there are some environment backgrounds that come included. And so I'm going to throw an environment background outside of this window so we're not looking into some blank void. I'm going to throw in the cityscape and see what that looks like. So we have that foreground of buildings now outside the window, just to add a little bit of immersion to this office room. And there's also a secondary background you can add just to get some more detail of the cityscape in the background. And then I don't want to be able to select these, so you can either toggle on and off of seeing these items, or you can click this little hand icon and it makes it so you can't select it. So if you're trying to select other stuff, it won't get in the way, so to speak, which makes it very nice when you're trying to navigate your 3D environment. If we go to Edit and Project Settings, we're going to see some of our plugin management here. I want this to be enabled for Oculus because I'm using an Oculus Quest 2 with this Unity project. And we can see that if you need OpenXR, you could select that there as well. So now I'm going to make sure the Oculus app is open. I had that installed in a previous video. I'm going to put on my Oculus headset, look at my desktop through Oculus Air Link, and I'm going to press the play button in the top here, and then I'm going to test out my environment. So as I build this VR scene, I like to test it out step by step with my VR headset to make sure everything's working. And I can see that my hand tracking looks good. My XR rig starts me in the right spot. And I can move my headset around and look around the room, and soon I'll change these cannonball hands and then make this more immersive and make sure that there's more features added as we go. So testing is pretty straightforward, but if I go to File and Build Settings, I can set up how I want to execute this as a program. So if I'm making this standalone, I can set it up for Android if I want to run it on the Oculus Quest, but I'm going to run it from a PC. So I just want to make sure my settings are set up for PC, Mac, Linux standalone. This way I'm just going to Oculus Air Link into my PC, and also make sure that your scenes are selected for what you're going to build for. So if you have any open scenes, just click the Add Open Scenes button. It will add your relevant scenes that are open, because you want to make sure all of your levels, so to speak, are included. So that's what you want to do when building and executing a standalone program. So I'm not really changing any settings here. I'm just going to use whatever is default. I'm going to click Build. I'm going to put it in a new build folder within my VR package folder, my project folder. So you can do different versions of your build, manage your versions how you like. Once you select where you're going to build it, Unity will then generate a standalone executable file. Once it is set up, we can just run that executable through Oculus Air Link, and here we go. We have a standalone VR program or game, and here we are. It's very simple, obviously, but it is a start to see that our build settings did work and everything works just fine. So now I'm just going to add a bunch of objects to the room, make it more immersive, add mirrors, TVs, tables, books, staplers, etc. Fireplace, why not? All these assets come with the Create with VR package, so we might as well add these in just to make our room look a bit different. So now I'm going to add some components for snap turning to my XR rig here. And you can see the scripts in the right hand side of the screen. I'm going to add some more scripts. So I'm going to add component. I'm going to add the locomotion system script. I'm going to attach the XR rig to it so it knows what to reference to. I'm going to add another component. I'm going to add the snap turn provider action based. So every time we do left or right on our controller, we'll be, snapping 45 degrees, 90 degrees, whatever you want. And that turn amount is setting is there. So just pull the XR rig, the locomotion system, into that as the system it references. And basically you have this debounce time, which you can play with that. I think default settings are great though for snap turning. And 45 degrees is usually pretty comfortable for most users who aren't familiar with VR. So I'm going to keep these settings for my environment. And then in the usual fashion, I'm just going to test this out using my VR headset, and we can see that the snap turning is working great. I can hit left or right on my joystick on the Oculus Quest 2 controller, and I can see that I can snap turn 45 degrees. I also want to add some teleportation, so back on my XR rig object, I'm going to add another script, the teleportation provider that comes with the Learn with VR. I'm going to pull my XR rig into it. This way, I can start teleporting around the room. And once I do that, I'm going to click on this plane. I'm going to just rename this plane the teleport plane. So this is like the safety carpet, so to speak, that's in this room, and I cannot go off of this carpet, so I can't fall into this empty void that's outside this office, right? And so I'm going to make sure that the teleportation area is tied to this, and then there's a bunch of setting here as well if you want to play around with it, but for me, default settings are good. World space up is the match orientation I'm looking for here. And we want to pull in our XR rig into teleportation provider. That way these two things are linked. And just a quick simple test here with our VR headset, we can see that the red line coming out of our hand turns white, indicating we can teleport somewhere. So we can kind of teleport around the room using our trigger button. And here we are. We can now move around the room freely, snap turn around, and begin interacting with stuff. So with the Unity Learn package, you get some art frames you can hang up around the room. So I'm going to add this swan painting, but I want to make it a custom painting. I want to use Stable Diffusion, some AI to add my own image, and I can see the base map that they're using. You know, we'll pull in different images from this large image file, but I want to add, again, my own image, and in order to do that, we're going to have to add a texture file here that we can add to the image here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to just pull in our image from Stable Diffusion of this ship. Looks really cool. Want to hang this in the office. I'm going to right click in the blank space here. I'm going to say create. I'm going to say material. And I can name this material whatever I'd like. I'm going to call this ship photo. And I'm going to see its metallic workflow mode. I'm going to change to specular. I'm going to pull in this image to the base map. And then I now have the ship photo as a texture file. I'm going to pull that in, and I'm going to pull it into this picture. I'm going to change it to specular first, and I'm just going to drag and drop it into the image, and then I'm going to click on the image there on the wall, and I can see the tiling and offset. I'm going to change that until the image is set in the center. So let's pull the camera up here. I'm going to say 2 and 2 for tiling, 3 and 3, and it's going to slowly shrink that ship picture. I'm going to change the offset a little bit here until I get it centered exactly like I want it. And there we go. Ship picture is in the center. Looks good. I'm also going to add these Oculus Quest 2 models for the hands, for left and right hand controller under the XR rig, so it's as easy as dragging and dropping the model file onto the model prefab setting on the inspector window. And if I want to make an object interactable, I have some around the room. I'm just going to select on my model here. I'm going to add a script that's in here. It's the XR grab interactable, and then I can select the movement type. I'm just going to keep it kinematic, and then when I'm testing it in the VR environment, I can just hit the right trigger, pull up my object, drop it, just like you would with typical VR objects. I'm also going to add a little speaker on the ceiling here. I'm going to add a script to the speaker audio source. I'm going to pull my HVAC sound I downloaded online to it to add some immersion there as well. So the room is coming together. I have a bunch of objects here. I have some TVs with some buttons underneath. Those buttons came with the Unity Learn. And basically I'm going to set up so you could use your XR Array interactor to use the play, pause, and stop buttons to play a video on the TV screens. Alright, in terms of buttons, there is some prefabs in the controls folder. There's a play, stop, pause, and next buttons. And if you bring those in, you can use the rotate tool in the top left, or use the transform functions on the right of the screen, and you can scale these, make them a bit bigger, rotate them as you need to, and then stick them on the wall. So your TV screen, if you look on the left side, it consists of the TV or the bevel and the screen itself. And the screen is where the video is going to play. So if we click on that object that is in the TV, we're going to add a component to that screen component. And if we look for audio source, that's the first thing we're going to do. And we're going to give it 3D spatial audio by pulling that to 3D. And then we're going to add the next component. It's going to be a video player, and this is native in Unity. I'm going to turn off play on awake, and there's nothing else to do at this moment, but there is a script called play video. And what we're going to do here is find a video clip, add that as an element, and once we do that, if we're looking at the video player, make sure that the material property is set to base map. There are several options on how you can play this video texture on the screen. And then just for a quick test, we can press the play at start on the play video script. So everything you do with this video is going to be running through that script. And now during testing, we can see that everything is working and it's playing with 3D spatial audio on the TV. Be sure to remove play at start from that script on the screen object. And then for each of these buttons, be sure to add the XR simple interactable script, and then drag and drop the screen object onto that script, and then tie it to the play video function, and then tie it to the function that makes sense for the button. So the stop to stop, the play, and the pause to pause. Now for testing, we can see that when we hover over these buttons with our laser hands, we can play the video, stop the video, pause the video, etc. Okay, for the last part of this video, I'm going to pull a control button in from the prefabs. I'm going to put it by this elevator in the office area, and I want to be able to press this button, hit the trigger, so not just hover over it, but actually have to hover over it and press a button. And I want this button to take me to another level, aka another scene. And in that scene, we're going to set up a 360 video that we can watch. So there's like a 360 experience built into this VR experience. And so we're going to add this button in. We're going to scale it to the way we want it, and we're going to put it on the elevator. That is step one. So we're first going to right click on the left here and create a new object, and we're going to name it scene control. And then in that object, we're going to add a script, the load scene script. Once that's complete, we're going to go back to the button, and with this control button, we're going to add a component, and we're going to add a new script. We're going to look for XR simple interactable. This is just like we did with the buttons with the TV, and we're going to look at interactable events. We're going to use the select function and then drag and drop the scene control object into that, and then we're going to find the function load scene from name. And then we want to load scene using name, and then we can just find the name of our scene, which right now is just called sample scene, and we can put that name in there, and then whenever we hover over it, press our trigger button, it will load the sample scene, which as of right now is an empty scene. Before we test this, make sure to go to File, Build Settings, and make sure all your scenes are in there. So you can drag and drop, and so we need our sample scene in there on our room start scene in order for this to work. And now we can see while testing, we can press the button, and voila, we're in the new sample scene, which is as of right now empty, but we're going to add a 360 video to that scene. So I'm going to put a button in the environment, so I have a way to get back to the main level like I did previously. And I'm going to right click here in my 360 videos folder that I've made, and I'm going to find create material. I'm going to call this video material, And then for the shader, instead of universal render pipeline, I'm going to look for skybox panoramic. But I'm going to choose mobile skybox here. I'm going to choose the wrong one so we can see what happens when we do. I'm also going to right click here. I'm going to create a render texture. I'm going to call this video texture. So you always want the size of this video texture to match the size of the video. So if you have a 360 video, just right click on it and look at properties. And then we want to add a object to our scene. And you can add an object, right click in here. We're going to say create empty. And once we click create empty, we can rename this whatever you like. I'm going to call it 360 video player. I'm going to add a component. I'm going to add the video player. And then I'm going to pull my 360 video in as the video clip. I am going to play on awake so that once we pop in this scene or this level, it's going to play it. I'm going to add the video texture as a target texture. And so now that my Shark 360 photo is here, now it will be attached to that video texture. And I'm going to look at the properties here and make sure the size of my video texture is correct. Now if I go to window on top here, I go to rendering lighting, and then I click on environment. If I hit that tab, we can see the skybox material. And right now it's just a default skybox, but if I change this to the video material, this is what we need in order to play the video in the sphere that surrounds this game world, right? However, our video material is mobile skybox and not panoramic, so we need to make sure we look for panoramic, skybox panoramic. Image type is 360, and then pull in the video texture, and now that is attached. Once we start this up, the video should play. And we can see here that it is playing. However, this video is not properly, transcoded with the 360 settings. So we're going to do this one more time, but we're going to do it with a video that is correct. So there's actually 360 information that's embedded in the videos, and I'll put a link in the description below to these free downloadable videos that are 360 compatible, and you can view these in 360 on Vimeo, but you can also directly download them. So I really like this waterfall 360 video from Vimeo, so I'm going to download this, and then we're going to pull that into Unity. And when I do download it, do make sure that you get the original file size, just so you have the highest quality when you pull it into Unity. So there is metadata that's embedded in the 360 video that helps the video player know that it's 360. Google does have this spatial media injector tool on their GitHub, and if the video is not 360, so I'm going to open this 360 video in VLC, I can drag the cursor around and I can see that I can look around in 360. So you can imagine, with a VR headset on, I would move my head and then the camera would move. So this is a really cool, relaxing scene. So I'm going to pull this into Unity. I don't need to use that metadata injector tool for this one, but if you did say make a 360 photo or video in Blender, you would need that tool in order to make it work. And you just click the check boxes after opening a video and inject the metadata, and that's it. So we're going to drag and drop that video into our assets in Unity. So we have that waterfall video now. We can double click on it. We can also play it right in the Unity player. But we had that video texture and video material from before. We're just going to create a new one, right? We're going to do this over again, just so we know the process. So we right click and we are going to go to create. And then once we are at create, we can see all the things we can make. We're going to make a material first. And I'm just going to call this video material 2. And if we look at the first one, we want this to be a panoramic and not mobile skybox. So this is what we did wrong the first time. So I'm going to type in panoramic, click on that. And now it's the right setup for the material. I'm going to right click here again. I'm going to go to create. And then we're going to select a render texture. And then I'm going to call this video texture 2. Same as before. And again, the size, you want it to be the same size as the video. So if I were to look at the properties here, go to details, I can see 4096 by 2048. So I have my details there. And now we're going to go to the video material 2, pull in video texture. So that video texture plays on that material. And of course, double check its skybox panoramic, looks good. And so I'm going to create a new asset here. I'm going to go to create empty, right click in your objects, your scene objects, and then 360 video player 2. I'm going to add a component. I'm going to add the video player. And what we want to do here is make sure the video clip is our 360 video and our target texture is our video texture. Of course, once that's done, we're going to go to window on top. We're going to go to rendering lighting. We're going to go to the environment tab on here, just like we did before. And in the environment tab, we are going to set that skybox material as our video material. So it plays that 360 video in that sphere that surrounds you in this 360 environment. Testing it out here, things look really good. I can do the 45-degree turn here, and I'm in a 360 video virtual environment. Pretty awesome. After creating a standalone build here, we can see our splash screen, and we are going to enter our, virtual office environment that we created, and we can go over to the video screen. We can play our video. So we see that works. And then we can go to the elevator and we can say, all right, take us to the next level. And here we are in our 360 virtual environment. Nice and peaceful. And you can press this button and we're back in the office. Looks like it's working well. As a bonus, I want to take you through Blender and how to install the XPS tools. So I'm going to put a link in the description below where you can download the plugin to do this. And if you do this, you can download XPS models, import them into Blender, and you can make and get characters, scenes, all kinds of cool stuff to pull into Unity. So in Blender, if you go to Edit, you go to Add-ons and click there, and you're going to want to install the zip file you downloaded. So if you do that, then you will have successfully installed the XPS add-on. Make sure to click the checkbox so that it is enabled. But whenever you go to File and Import, you'll now have an XPS setting. And as you can see, we can import a model we downloaded, and here is a awesome Star Wars model. And you can see the skeleton structure. This is common with XPS X and layer models, and obviously in object mode, you can do all your modifications in Blender, but you can also pose with pose mode and, create scenes, edit your characters how you like, and then bring those into your virtual environment in Unity. Okay, that's everything for this video. I will do future shorter videos on just small tips and tricks with Unity and Blender, Unreal Engine, etc. So please like and subscribe. It helps the channel, and thank you for watching.